Focus of today, as Daphne has indicated, of this briefing is largely to give you a system update. We have not really had the system update, more especially in this kind of a format for a long time, largely because we have not been having load shedding. We came to the conclusion that we wanted to set up this kind of a briefing session this morning, and we felt that we needed to, because of the change and what is we are going to be announcing today, we felt that it required us to have an open engagement with all of you as members of the media. And we have an approach here within Eskom which says that bad news needs to travel fast, and we have always been having great news for the last 10 months where there was no load shedding, but when we saw that there is a possibility that we could have load shedding, we felt that we needed to apply the same principle externally. Let us communicate openly. Let us have an engagement with all of you. Let us be transparent, which is one of the values that we have as a company. So to do that, we have kindly asked our minister to take the lead for us in terms of this briefing, and I'm going to be asking the minister to come in and share his thoughts and deliver a key message around why we are here. Minister, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon to everyone, and also just to thank members of the media for being so kind to come and join us here at, as the Chair has mentioned, exceptionally short notice, because I think we're relying on you as a partner and a conduit to be able to transmit very, very important messages like we have been doing consistently over the past few months. First, I want to start by acknowledging the Nersa decision that was released yesterday. So I think a number of things to be drawn out of that decision by Nersa. The first one is the more comprehensive and robust engagement of South Africans in that consultation process, and I think what it does is to bring credibility and legitimize the engagement by Nersa. I think we have seen a phenomenal response from members of the community. I mean, just average consumers coming to the fore and sharing their own lived experiences, and it is those lived experiences that has helped Nersa in part to arrive at that multi-year pricing determination. As you all know, is a 3-year cycle, and they've agreed that I think for the first year is a 12.7% tariff increase granted to Eskom. Eskom had made an application for 36%. I'm making that point because Nersa was confronted with a very delicate balancing act. On the one side, to protect the interest of Eskom to continue being a going concern, generate enough cash to reinvest in its operations, and also the more ambitious build program, the generation side, over 800 billion rands, I think, over the next few years. On the transmission side, about 450 billion rands, and on the distribution side, around 162 billion rands. So Eskom needs, if you like, the kind of revenue injection, or rather to broaden the flow of revenue opportunities for it to be able to invest. And then on the one side, another side, to also balance the interest of the consumer. So the consumer at the level of a household level, the consumer in the form of industries need to be competitive. Consumers need to we ensure that we protect, if you like, their disposable income should not be eroded as rapidly, so that they are able to meet their own daily needs. So you can see that a delicate balancing act. So we had just concluded presenting to the portfolio committee. We are going to the AGM, and of course we'll work with Eskom to ensure that it's an efficient generator of electricity. So I thought I must just make that acknowledgement. So why are we here? We are here because I did make the point previously that the ministry, and working with the chair of the board, Dr. Mteto, and the CEO of the Eskom, Mr. Marokgopa, the group CEO, that I think what is going to characterize our engagement with the general public in our cause to resolve the load shedding question is to ensure that we are transparent, we are accountable, so we mask no challenges and we don't misrepresent ourselves. And I've made the point that we are within touching distance of the resolution of load shedding. I had made the point that at the point that we have resolved load shedding, I and the chair of the board will address the country and say we have resolved load shedding. And I said that we're on the right track. I mean, if you see the trend line is positive from a point of view of reducing what we call the unplanned losses, capacity loss factor, bringing down the rate at which the units are failing, and addressing the partial load losses, investing in planned maintenance. You remember the point I'd been making previously, short-term pain, long-term gain. We've been seeing the rewards over a sustained period, like the chairs mentioned, a 10-month period of consecutive days of no load shedding over 300 days. And I had made the point that if we see setbacks, of course, it's a huge disappointment, but it should not detract us from the bigger picture, which is the trend line. And today we have hit that setback. As the chair has mentioned, we got hit by a perfect storm. So what is that perfect storm? We had the units out for planned maintenance, as was the case. You remember I said that and as part of the generation recovery plan, the chair had made this point. We are not going to compromise on planned maintenance. And thanks to the fiscal support we received from National Treasury, Mr. Nxumalo and the team have been able to do that planned maintenance. So we've been doing consistently, also created, if you like, a significant amount of headspace for allowing us to be a bit more aggressive. So we continue to do that. But then we had a situation where at the two of our best performing power stations, really, Matimba and Letabo, where we had a number of units failing at the beginning of the week. So that's the second matrix in that perfect storm. And then the third one was that there were other units that delayed in coming back. So as a result of that, what that meant is that for most of the week we had to rely on our open cycle gas turbines. Essentially, in layman's words, we were burning diesel. Remember, the peaking plants are designed to do exactly that, to help us to be able to stave off the intensification of load shedding or the initiation of load shedding. So what that meant is that we ran those peaking plants and we exhausted, if you like, our reserves. We are at a point where, for purposes of protecting the grid and the integrity of the system, we need to maintain the reserve margin. So if you had to ask me, as we sit here, even during the peak, we have enough to support ourselves, but we don't have, we have depleted the reserves. So we have taken a conscious decision that we are not following records. So what is the record? Ideally, we want to say a year without load shedding, we are proceeding, but no, that can't be at the expense of the system. And like I said, informed by prudent and judicious engineering consideration, and what are the expectations of the system operator, we say we will initiate load shedding. So what does that mean? It gets to be initiated because we are pulling back and replenishing all the reserves, making sure that Ankerlecha in particular, because we are tracking the diesel there, Khorikwa, less of that, we must be able to get the dam levels right. So we are not going to rely on those. So essentially we are taking out that the capacity that could be used tonight, but to say to protect the system and allow us as we start next week, and Mr. Marokgopa and Mr. Nxumalo will share with you the units that will be coming back that had gone out. Of course, it's a very sad moment. We would have wanted the situation where we said it's a year without load shedding. We want the situation when we get that 2,500 megawatts additional. Remember, Kubek unit number 2 has come back in December, and then expecting Kusile unit number 6 to be synchronized now in February, and then Midupi unit number 4 to come back after a long period of unplanned loss factor being out for an extended period of time, I think close to 3 to 4 years. It will be coming up back in March, and then at that point we should be comfortable coming out and say we think that we have the opinion that load shedding is behind us. But we have a duty to protect that. Exceptionally disappointed, all of us, but I was saying to the team, the first thing, protect the system. The integrity of the system is important. We are agreed on that. I think as the engineers here, and acceptance that we have to do things right, and the teams will explain that. And then also that the trend line is still in the right direction. If you look at our summer outlook, we did make the point that once we breach over 13,000 megawatts of unplanned loss capacity, or in fact, if we are within that 13,000 and below, we shouldn't be having load shedding. So if you see the performance now, we are close to that. That's the point I'm making, that ordinarily there shouldn't be load shedding. Anything above that, over 13,000, the risk of stage 2, so on and so forth. So I think it's important that we get to communicate with the country. Yes, it's a setback. It's a setback because of the momentum that we have been building over time. We did make the point when we arrive at a situation where there are setbacks, we'll be the first one to communicate to the country. We'll not issue a notice, but communicate to the country, this is where we're at. But the trend line, we're still going in the right direction. So we have come to a situation where load shedding is an extraordinary occurrence. We've moved from a situation where when we don't have load shedding, it's an anomaly. I'm sure everyone can accept that it's an extraordinary occurrence, and we really want to put it behind us. So as a result of all of these things, the team we will be initiating stage 3 load shedding, at least over the weekend, and then go back to conditions of what now we have come to call normality. But Mr. Marokane and Mr. Numalo will share with the details with you. But I thought that it is important that we occasion this opportunity and share with you candidly, frankly, the state of the grid and the kind of interventions that we are making. I'll hand over to Ben.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just to anchor the point that the Minister made earlier, we are at this point of impending load shedding. As indicated, we will actually start load shedding at 5 p.m. this evening. We'll run it throughout the weekend, and primarily the objective is to build the reserves that we relied on quite extensively since the beginning of this week. The reliance on the reserves was occasioned by the unfortunate and combination of multiple unit sweeps at the big two stations, Letabo and Matimba. We are well progressed in terms of getting these units back on track, back into operation, and they'll be coming through over the weekend and early in the new week. However, what we saw, despite the fact that our unplanned losses are just over 13,000 megawatts, is the fact that come next week, as the demand picks up, will not be having any reserves if we do not create some allege for ourselves over this weekend. I just want to confirm that from a generation recovery plan, the issue of trips of units or tackling unreliability is a factor that we have all gotten to accept that we need to deal with it, and we are working as well within our structures of the Workstream 1 in NICOM to look at ways in which we can improve on reliability on the back of the maintenance activities that we have undertaken. Overall availability is still high, but we need to create this space for unexpected breakdowns as they do happen in this case. This is well within the forecast that we shared for the summer plan. It has materialized to that extent, and our focus with our teams that are quite disappointed around this fact, but are quite prudent in our approach, is to return these units back into operation and get back to the new normal of no load shedding for ourselves. I just want to pause here, Chair, and indicate that our focus is on getting these units and those that are operating in a state that gives us some level of comfort as we have grown accustomed to. This has nothing to do with any other thing. It's an operational matter. We are comfortable that we understand the root causes of it, and that our teams are actually focusing on resolving those and bringing them under the leadership of Becky over here. So Becky will share with you just high level what units these are and when we expect them to be coming back into operation. I must also use the platform to thank our suppliers who have gone out of their way to give us some capacity as we replenish the reserve fuel in particular in the Ankerlech space. Thank you, Becky.
To move the mics.
Okay, thank you very much, Natema Magana. Okay, good afternoon, members of the media and to the public. I think let me just outline, just to give some clarity as well on the number of units that came off, especially at Letabo. It's really the incident that is not the normal, where we have on one day 3 units coming off, mainly because of the boiler tube failures. So we have started now with the repairs. The first unit, we're expecting it to come tomorrow. So, and we will be working over from tonight until over the weekend until mid next week to return some of these units, most of them by Monday, Tuesday. And also at Matimba, we have returned the first unit this morning. So there's still other units that still need to come back over the weekend at Matimba. That also came off. Those are the 2 big stations that had almost 6 units between them that are off. If you take their size, it's about 3,600 megawatts. So that's what is critical, that those units. And these are also one of our 2 of our best stations as well. And then we also have some units at Kendall and Krill that we will also start returning over the weekend. Bad thing this week was mostly the boiler tube failures. We have a program in Eskom that deal with this. So we are working together with our main OEMs on the boilers to understand this risk of failure as well. Obviously, you can't go to all the tubes in the boiler, even if we have an outage. Especially one incident that happened at Letabo was a bit of a difficult one. Yeah. But I think while we apologize, our teams are focused. So we will do everything to make sure that we return back to the normality that we've just created as well. So thank you, Minister. Thanks, Chair.
No, thank you. Now we are going to open the floor for questions. We've got members of the media who have joined us virtually as well. Please post your questions on the chat. We haven't seen any questions as yet. So we'll start with the members of the media in the room. And from there we will then give an opportunity to those that have connected virtually. Please raise your hand. And before you can ask your question, please just let us know, give us your name and the media house that you are representing. Thank you. Heidi.
Heidi Jagos from ENCA. I just want clarity. You say it's 6 units between the 2 power stations. Maybe I didn't hear you, but how many units are still off from the 6? And then I just want to get a response perhaps from the Minister. I know that you briefly mentioned it in your statement yesterday, but how much of a setback is it that you didn't get what you asked for from Nersa? Thank you.
Any other question in the room?
My name is Salim. I'm from AFP. Just want to ask. I have two questions. How reliant is Eskom still on coal power generation? And regarding the JEP funding, climate funding from Europe and US, how much has Eskom received to date, and what specific projects have been executed?
Thank you. Any other question? It looks like we only have.
Maybe I can have the last one.
Yes.
What infrastructure changes have occurred to stabilize the grid? So that's my last question.
Thank you. Over to you, Chairperson.
Okay, I will ask Dan to talk to the setback on the Nersa. Yeah.
I didn't want to put Nersa's boxing partner Caleb into the ring on this. Chair, the decision by Nersa is different from what we asked for. What we asked for was within the context of creating a sustainable Eskom going forward, understanding that the sustainability is premised on 4 elements. The tariff is just one of them. The debt relief package that we continue to enjoy from National Treasury is the second. The third is the resolution of the municipality debt, which is now staggering towards 100 billion rands, and the fourth is a self-help of cost compression within the business. We are now going to integrate the decision from Nersa and look at how it affects our view of sustainability going forward, and will respond accordingly in due course. Chair, we know that this outcome is, as the Minister explained, a consideration of all stakeholders, and we need to be looking at how we navigate our path in a space of a society that's got broad issues that they need to cover.
Maybe just to make the point that on this question, as a minister, I'm on both sides. So first is to welcome the decision of Nersa. And as the CEO of Eskom makes the point, I think that Eskom's specific considerations that inform the submissions of 36% tariff increase for reasons that in part the Group CEO has mentioned. But on the other hand, is the interest of the consumer, the fact that they are under significant strain, the consumer at the household level, and also of industry. So where I'm sitting is that Nersa had to do that balancing act, and of course we'll work with Eskom to ensure that in the context of this new reality they are able to meet their obligation, as the CEO has mentioned. But on the other side, we still have an obligation to cushion households, everyone, low-income household, middle to high-income household, and industry. And that's why I said I welcome that decision by Nersa, and then we will work with both parties, Eskom, and also see how best we cushion, if you like, consumers going into the future. I did make the point that there's some work that the ministry is concluding and will be coming out in the public on that, the kind of interventions that we are making. But yes, we have to resolve both. It's not a binary conversation. And you can imagine Nersa had a very difficult act, but they executed to the best of their ability, so we welcome that. So it maps the new reality. My Eskom has to live within the context of that new reality. The jet funding.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'm going to ask Becky to address the other 2 questions. One, the number of units that are still running in those power stations, and also how reliant are we on the coal-fired power stations?
Thank you, Chair. Out of the 6 units, I've indicated that the first one at Matimba has returned, so we still got the 5 out of the, because 3 still at Letabo. The next unit at Letabo will return from tomorrow. And then the Matimba unit, also the second one will also return, which is unit 6, will return also from tomorrow. So there is still 5 that are still off that we are planning to do. The commissioning are starting over this afternoon, and then until all of them are returned to the Then the issue of reliance on coal, obviously we are still relying. Most bulk of our power come from the coal, say for Kobe on the base load, and then the rest is picking plants. So if you look at the base load, mostly of it is coming from stations, from coal-fired stations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. And then, Caleb, on the JET IP, have we done any drawdown, or have we engaged any of the partners in that with regards to those programs, JET IP?
Thanks, Chairman. In terms of the debt relief over the next, well, we're currently finishing the second year. We're going into the third year of the debt relief. We would need to get permission from the Minister of Finance to borrow. This has been lots of engagements, but in this window of the debt relief period, Eskom has not entered to any drawdowns and transactions in terms of the JET-P funding, but discussions are still ongoing with the various parties. That's where we are at this point in time, Chair.
Thank you so much, Caleb. I just want to add a point around the Nersa tariffs and also this point around JET IP. The first one on the Nersa, we have accepted as Eskom the reality. This is the reality that we've got. We are disappointed, of course, but this is our new reality. Like all businesses, we are business leaders, we're business people. We need to now be able to live within this new reality. So our drive now is we have to continue to be profitable and sustainable within this new reality. That may change some of the actions that we are doing internally in order for us to achieve that objective. So, but internally, the leadership team is clear. The focus now is let's continue to drive this business. As you have seen with regards to the first 6 months of this year, we have been able to be profitable. We need to continue along those lines as we go forward. Again, going to the JET IP discussion, we cannot, in our view as the board, we don't want to, if we do not need to go and borrow, we should not be borrowing. You know? And no matter how much stuff that is available out there, we are in a strong position right now, largely at the back of the work that has been done by the generation team to improve the operational performance of this company. Because we are now strong, we should not just because there are lines available out there, we should be drawing down. So that's our approach to all of us. So with that, back to you, Daphne.
Thanks, Chair. We do now have questions. Yes.
There was a question regarding what's being done to improve connectivity and so on.
Sorry, this one's easier.
So Kgosientsho is here. This is work mostly in the anti-CSA space. They've been hard at work in making sure they can pick up. So Kgosientsho, maybe you want to talk about your targets and how you're performing this year in the express?
It's not possible. You must come.
Okay.
Yeah,
You must walk.
You must walk. Or crawl.
We can take another question in the meantime.
Maybe while Mr. Skeetros is still coming to the podium, we can take the questions that are posted virtually. I'm going to hand over to Mama Swazi to just read them out. Thank you.
Okay, our first question is from Helmo Prius. He wants to know how much OCGT usage last week. We've got another question from Lisa Stein at News 24. She would like to know, please advise on diesel supply for Ankerlig and Kgosientsho. Why is it less of an issue at Kgosientsho? What are the lead times to restock diesel? Then we've got another from Antoinette Slavat. She wants to know, should Eskom not have increased its storage capacity at Ankerlig by now? Then there's another from Carol Payton at News 24. She would like to know, to Mr. Marokane, what will the impact be on the very large cuts in allowable operational expenditure made by Nersa? Will you still be able to do maintenance? Then we've got another from Quinton Bronkhorst from Business Tech. He wants to know, stage 3 load shedding will be implemented. Is there still a risk of this escalating to stage 4 or beyond? Paul Burkhardt from Bloomberg News would like to know, you're describing this as an exceptional situation, but doesn't it still mean that the electricity supply again lacks stability? Will you make any changes to the current approach to maintenance?
Thanks, Swazi. So we'll start with and that this Gepers, and I'll hand over back to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The question was regarding how we are proceeding with the infrastructure rollout, which is required to connect a lot of new renewable power plants that have been developed across the country. Our target in terms of transmission line kilometers for the current financial year is just around 300 kilometers. That is the target for the year. As at the end of December, we had constructed around 250 kilometers of transmission lines. So we are fairly on track for this year in terms of what we're aiming to achieve. The second one relates to the addition of new transformation capacity in existing substations across the country. The target as at the end of March for this year is around 2,500 MVAs of transformation capacity. As we stand, just over 1,000 MVAs of transformation capacity has been installed and commissioned as at the end of December. The balance of those units, which are all imported, are in the country. They have been shipped. 2 of those are already at the substations, and the installation and erection is proceeding. And the third unit is still en route to the substation in the Northern Cape. So overall, I think we are reasonably on track for the plans that we have for this year. And obviously, there is a program that looks into next year and the year after and so on. But for where we are right now, we are reasonably on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skiabas. Can we have the mics this side? Most of the questions are directed at Becky. Becky, I'm sure you can handle all of them. Okay, OCGT usage, Becky.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think in terms of the OCGTs, as we've indicated, that because of the high usage, then which means then we were using, if you take Ankerlig with 9 units, which means then all of them were running, and then they run more, and then also same thing at Kgosientsho power stations, then it means that we were running all. So it's actually, and then they run more than what you normally do during the peak hours as well. So that is the situation on them. And then the issue of...
Can we just say a little bit on the OCG usage? Because we have been reporting back to the country on how we are doing against last year. If you look over the, let's say, the month of January compared to January of the previous year, the OCG usage, what was your sense?
Yeah. I think in terms of if you compare month on month, we might almost close to be the same as that period, because this January we have used a bit more of the. But overall, in the year to date, we were still better, about 700 million better by last week. So I think, but with this week now, we might have then catch up to the levels where we were last year, Chair. And then the other question was with regard to why is it Ankelech having an issue, not Kgosientsho? I think it's a logistic issue. If GCE did indicate that at Kgosientsho you've got a pipeline between the plant and or the tanks and the station. So there, because we are pumping, then it's easier to fill up the station. And then also it also talked to the point that was raised to say why we were taking long. So Ankelech is a bit further from the harbour, and you are also using trucks. You don't have the pipeline. So the logistics, then when you need a turnaround for moving from the harbour or from the port to the stations, it takes a bit longer. That's why Ankelech will always deplete first than Kgosientsho as well. So that's what we are working on to try and increase that. Not sure if there's another point that I'm missing.
Yeah, there is maintenance philosophy. From Bloomberg approach. What's your approach to plant maintenance?
Yeah, our plan is like we are already working for the next year cycle with all the units per stations that need to go to the station. So that has not been affected by this as well. So it is, I think the chair did indicate that it's one area that we said we are not going to cut back as well. Even if it's difficult to take, there was a question about Quebec units coming off as well now because we have to do refueling. But because it's on its maintenance philosophy, it will continue as such. But the other thing, Chair, maybe to add on this, we are not only dealing with the normal maintenance philosophy, we are doing most of our stations, especially the coal fleet, the upgrades on the emissions reduction projects. So it's a combination of that as well. It's not, but we have got already the approval from board for this next year. So all those maintenance plans for it is covered. So we haven't getting a sense, like what Chair was saying as well, that we have to live within what is there, but we believe that we will still be able to execute maintenance as planned as well going forward. Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Okay, the last point around stage 3. We're currently at stage 3. That's what we have announced. What is the risk of that going up?
I think
for this weekend.
I think the risk there will be if we can't be able to recover as planned because of other units that might be coming off. But if it's normally, when the unit trips, it doesn't take long normally to return. It's more the issue of if you have got a failure like we had now at Letabo, where you need massive scaffolding to get to the levels where the failure is in the boiler, then it takes a bit longer now, and also with the cooling that is required, taking into account the safety considerations for that. But normally, if you have some setbacks on the trips, it's about 4 or 5 hours, the units are back. So there is a risk if we've got more of those other units then coming off and then minusing whatever we are trying to bring back. But I think from where we are, we think we should be able to sustain it. But the risk is there if something happen more than what we are planning for. Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. The last one, we ask GCE to handle this one from Carol. Can we have the mics?
Yeah. This is an easy one. It's going to call.
It's really about the Nersa decision, how it will impact your maintenance going forward.
You have to find a much more efficient way of doing this. Thank you, Chair. As indicated earlier, the Nersa decision was communicated yesterday. We are busy unpacking the implications across each of the key lines. It will require us to adjust some of our approach. It's pretty too early for me to be quite definitive. You can surely expect to hear from us as soon as we finish that internalization in the coming week. The bottom line is that we have what's on the table, and we need to see how best to operate within it, still being a prudent operator, especially when coming to asset care and asset philosophy that needs to be solid and not flip-flopping with the amount of money that we have. So we will give you a comprehensive feedback once we have looked at that. I just want to add one more issue relating to the question around the maintenance approach that we followed. Biggie is right. We're continuing along the path that we have started. Why? Because it's giving us results. It's giving us 10 months of no load shedding. It's giving us the ability to absorb shocks that ordinarily previously we could not have. But we've always known that should a special circumstance arise that leads to a higher level of unplanned losses, we may be in trouble, like we've explained in our summer plan. We explained in our winter plan, and we are at that point. What do we know? We know that one of our key focal points going forward is for us to really look at how do we increase the reliability of our units once we've done maintenance of them. And that's the focus that we have, improving reliability so we don't have a lot of these bad actors coming in even when we have done extensive maintenance. It's a progression of deepening of our maintenance philosophy. It is working for us. And we are quite comfortable that as long as we stay the course and bring additional capacity on board, we should be able to withstand such kind of shocks going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to take the last round of questions inside the room, if there's any. Otherwise, I don't see any hands. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, what proportion of diesel is being used in the power mix to keep the power going?
There's another question on the line. Just take that.
All right. Let's take one on the chat. I think it will be the last one. So, yeah, the last round of questions. Otherwise, please send your questions to the media desk if there's any other questions that you want to ask.
Okay, the next one is from Terence Kramer at Engineering News. His questions are, given that Eskom received no revenue for the carbon tax, does that mean it has been exempted from the tax? If not, how will the tax be paid? His second question is, what is currently out for planned maintenance and how much is it unavailable due to unplanned outages and partial load losses? Antoinette Slabbert would also like to know, how is the work at Kusile 1, 2 and 3 progressing and when is it due to be completed? Also, what is the expected date to take Kusile Kuberg Unit 1 offline? Then we've got one from Tracy Lynn Reiters from the Weekend August newspaper. She would like to know, can you elaborate on the measures being taken to replenish Eskom's emergency reserves besides its main power stations and how long this will take? Her second question is, how confident are you that we will see an end to load shedding by March, as mentioned by Minister Ramokgopa, or is this timeline subject to change? And Antoinette just wanted to advise that her question on increased storage capacity at Ankerlig has not been answered.
Over to you, Chairman, but since we're having a 3:20, we're supposed 3:30 dead stop, I would advise that we just answer critical questions and then the rest we will respond via media desk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Maybe let me start with the Ankerach storage. I think, like I've indicated, the issue at Ankerach is really not the storage, it's more the logistics to get the fuel into the station. So maybe the other point I must add there is that going forward, the long-term plan for us is to convert that Ankerach to gas rather than really to try and increase the diesel storage. So apologies that we missed that one. And then obviously the measures to replenish is part of what we are announcing this afternoon, is dealing with that issue of this part of replenishing the supply, because it means then we are going to be able not to use as much harder at Ankerach, that we are able to recover. Then with regard to the Kusile, we are currently commissioning the first unit. We have just that is Unit 3. We have taken it off in December, so we are finished now with the work. So this unit is going to be coming back towards the beginning of this first week of February, and then it will be followed immediately by Unit 2, and then by end of March, then we will take off Unit 1 as well. So all the Kusile unit now, the program to replenish, to put them back onto the normal operations have started. The first unit is going to be Unit 3 that we will be bringing back in a week's time. Then in terms of the unbreakdown, we're just above 13,000. That's what we have indicated. The plan is just also above 600 megawatts for the station.
6,000.
6,000, yes. Do I say 600?
They will think that it's only 600.
Yes, 6,000, yeah. And then the proportion of diesel usage at the station, I mean, if you take Ankerach, let's say 2,000 plus 1,000 from the IPPs, then as a total of that is what you will be looking at as well in terms of the diesel proportion to the coal and nuclear as well, and water.
Deal with carbon tax.
Yeah.
Quebec, can you just handle Quebec?
Oh, Quebec.
Yeah.
Yes, Quebec is currently planned to come off from the 7th. We are already started with a long stretch. We still got fuel in that. But I think the current plan, that weekend of the 7th, that's when the Unit 1 at Quebec will come off. That's per plan. And which is a good thing as well, then, because that's when Kusile first unit coming back from the stacker replacement is also coming on. So we will get almost similar type of size machines back as well. Thank you.
Carbon tax, Caleb.
Thanks, Chair. With regard to carbon tax, like any taxes like the environmental levy, in terms of the methodology, Eskom is allowed to recover that as a pass-through mechanism. We've applied. Obviously, we anticipate that there's been engagements between Nersa and National Treasury, but I think that, Terence, that question should be referred to Nersa. And then just to add to the diesel usage during evening peaks, over the last week we've used them for 10% during the evening peaks. Came from diesel generation. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, and then I'll ask the Minister to address the end of load shedding and maybe comment on the carbon tax if you want to.
Hey, I wonder what you just did there. Okay. Maybe to
No, thanks, Chair. Maybe to say that on the issues of tax and fiscal measures, those are that's the domain of the Minister of Finance, so it's not in my space. So I will not encroach that space of the Minister of Finance. As and when he makes a determination, he'll be able to announce to the country. I've made the point that, and consistently, together with the chair of the board, that we now have Kubek unit number 2 back in December. Of course, it will still go through the licensing for extension of life, so that about 920 or so megawatts, we received that in December. The expectation is that we're getting to synchronize Kusile unit number 6 now in February, and then we're bringing back from a long layoff Medupi unit number 4 by March. So if you put all of those together, is 2,500 megawatts. And then you address the issues of the Kusile 1, 2, 3. You know that we had the permission to do temporary stacks. So now once you restore that to the permanent solution, then the conversation is a different one around our ability to come out in the public to say that load shedding is behind us. So once we finish all of those, myself and the chair will come out to the country and announce that we are confident that the load shedding is behind us, because by that time we'd have built, if you like, a sufficient runway, or if you like, headspace to be able to absorb occurrences of this nature. But we are confident. I mean, we have mapped we have the roadmap, and thanks to the leadership of Mr. Marokani and Mr. Numalo and the rest of the teams at the various power stations, who are still staying the course. Like I made the point earlier on, this represents a temporary setback, but the overall trend line is that we are in the right direction. So we, like I said before, we are within touching distance of ending load shedding. When load shedding is fully behind us, it will be myself and the chair of the board, of course, on behalf of the 40,000 plus men and women of Eskom, to say that now load shedding is behind us, and of course working with private sector on new generation capacity. But if you like, the foundations of our ability to resolve that still resides with Eskom, but with the reforms that have taken place and the new generation capacity coming from private sector, so you are extending the runway. So essentially we get into conditions of energy security. Like I said before, as I close, exceptionally disappointed, all of us, with regards to the setback, registering our profuse apology to the country. The last thing that we wanted was to have a stage 3 profuse apology, but we are on the right track. I think that's the message I want to convey. Of course, when you are confronted with a setback, sometimes we lose sight of the bigger picture. We want to get to a situation where we don't count the number of days where we don't have load shedding, because it shouldn't be there in the first place. 10 months of sustained supply, we would have wanted to go to a year, 2, and then forget about it. But we've always known that in the risk matrix, if you look at the summer outlook, all of these things that we have shared with you, sitting in the risk matrix, we've done everything possible to avoid the materialization of that risk. It has materialized. This is the response, and as Mr. Numalo and the Group CEO are saying, a temporary setback, and we hope that they will restore conditions of normality come Monday of next week. So we remain on course. I think that's the message I want to leave with the country. Very difficult to convey this message, but it must be conveyed. We will not send just a notice. We'll confront the situation and subject ourselves to the levels of scrutiny, and we'll continue to make ourselves available to clarify some of the work that we are doing. But I'm sure you can see that we have registered the kind of progress that points to the fact that we are moving in the right direction. So once more, thank you very much, members of the media and those who have taken time to listen to us. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, members of the panel, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for gracing us with your presence today. And again, to the media and the public, especially since this was a very short notice. And it's very unfortunate that we deliver this unfortunate news, but it's a temporary setback that we will be